Good morning. Have you ever noticed how much longer my robe is than all of yours? My chair is actually pretty big too. And you have to shake my hand with respect and a little fear as you leave the church. It's a convicting text. I don't know, it's a convicting text. I'm glad to be back, but let's see how glad you are to have me back after this sermon finishes up. The readings for this Sunday want me to preach about money. The two readings about starving widows set up a sermon about how we give and why we give. Our Old Testament lesson seems to give us a comforting message about God providing on the brink of starvation. Our gospel is a little more challenging. It's about a poor woman who gives all she has. It's about the equivalent of 1/7 of a loaf of bread. That's all she has in this world is 1/7 of a loaf of bread. And now she has convictingly given her very last morsel, and she's on the brink of starvation. Now that she has willingly given the very last scrap of food that she has, and she has given it to God, she's given it to the temple, to her faith community, will any of them take care of her? Will any of us take care of her? Why do you give? For a magnificent building? For a bigger choir? I like each and every one of you. Madeline's my favorite. If there were more, that's okay. For something that impresses and makes you feel impressive? Why do you give? Does a church filled with people impressed with themselves grow? Why do you give? Is it to love a widow? Why are you here? Are you the widow asking to be noticed on the brink of death? Asking to be loved? And like the widow, are you alone in a crowd with only Jesus noticing? Only Jesus seeing and hearing your cries for help? The very next verse, as I read after the widow's story, is one of the disciples exclaiming, "Look, teacher, what magnificent stones, what a magnificent building." At least one of the disciples seems to have moved on beyond the widow and is really being impressed by a wonderful building. Why are you here? Why do you give? The widow has us asking these questions. It is budgeting time now at Lutheran Church of the Master. We are developing our budget for the ministries that will be carried out throughout the next year. We are establishing who we want to be going forward. Why we're here. Why we give. The answer to these questions, who do you want to be, is reflected in a budget. Budgets are moral documents. They mirror to the community around us, our public living. They mirror for all to see who we want to be. At this point in the year, this congregation has been more generous than it ever has been. At the end of September, people have given out of their own pockets $201,000, $465.67. Over $200,000. That is immensely generous, unbelievably. Look around how many people there are in this room. Through the end of September, over $200,000. And people gave this out of their money. We didn't play the lotto and win. That's not why I left. I wasn't spending your lotto money. People gave this money. They worked for this money, and they could have kept it themselves, and they gave it to the church. They entrusted it to the church. They gave it to God so that his ministry could be done. At the end of September, over $55,000 had been given to our 75th anniversary campaign. We went around to celebrate 75 years, and over $55,000 has already been given, not just committed, given already to this church. So immensely generous, and they gave it so that there could be another 75 years of ministry. And yet, with all this astounding generosity, we are behind on our budget. If you look in the back of the bulletin, don't look now, but every week in the back of the bulletin, there's a number that says where we're at. Are we ahead? Are we behind in our giving? Where are we at for the giving to the general budget? And today it says that we are $12,600 behind. Why is that? How can there be an overflowing of generosity and yet at the same time a deficit? Let me be clear, I am not asking you for more money. I know that it might feel like that, but I am not asking you for more money. You are giving people, you are joyful givers as this Bible of ours asks us to be. A typical congregation our size, when you get to the end of September, a typical congregation our size gives about 90. How much have you given? Over 200, like normally 90, over 200. You guys are amazingly generous. And you should all be very proud of your generosity and the ministry it's doing. I am not asking for more money. I am thanking you. And I'm wondering, what do you want done with your generosity? That's what the widow has me wondering about. What do you want done with your generosity? Why are you here? What do you give? Are you here to help the starving widow in need? Are you here building something impressive that will stop passersby and say, "Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings"? Are you here to be challenged? Are you here to be comforted? Why are you here? Why do you give? What does a budget deficit amidst like crazy generosity mean? Amazing generosity. Are we correcting our giving to reflect who we truly are, what we truly want? And if so, who are we really? Are we a place where people stop and see and listen and exclaim, "Look, what a magnificent place"? Are we a place for the starving widow to find love? Can we be both? Will we be both in a budget deficit? These are the wonderings that the widow has for me. Just after the disciples shout out about how impressed they are with the buildings around them, Jesus says, "Do you see all these great buildings? Not one stone will be left on another. Each one will be thrown down." I don't know where the dissonance between generosity and deficit comes from. This is not a ploy for more money. It is a wondering about what you want done with your generosity. You have all been very generous. You guys gave a bunch of cards to prisoners, and I delivered those cards already, and those cards are going to go to these prisoners so that they can have a wonderful holiday season. We are going to collect for our Thanksgiving time, our budgeted Thanksgiving offering. It's going to go to replenish an account that I use to help families in need. And I have all year, and now I'll be able to do that even more. And we did that this month. You are all generous people, and I know you to be, and you have been, and I trust you to be. Don't be too quick to whip out your wallet and to solve the deficit and miss the important question that the widow has us asking. What do you want to do with your generosity? What do you want to be with your generosity? And are we realigning our priorities? Is our budget dissonance shifting who we are, saying we really need to be someone else? If so, who are we? Who do you want to be? Who do we want to be if it's not in our current budget? Budgets, money, giving, spending, these reflect who we are in powerful ways. We are generous, but towards what end? Before you whip out your wallet and your checkbook, I know you're generous. But toward what end? What happens with our generosity? Is our generosity in service to God? Is our generosity in service to a building? To something that looks impressive? How much of our budget is dedicated to a magnificent building? To long, impressive robes? To long, impressive prayers? Any of it? Maybe not. Maybe so. How much is committed to the widow? 10%? Less than last year? As much as possible? Are we able to keep our ministry commitments given a budget deficit? If not, is it the widow that is set aside, like the disciples walk past her and they're like, oh, look at these buildings? Your council will come together next Saturday, just 1 week from now, and they will pray and discuss and plan for the end of this year and our ministry in the next. They will cast a fiscal vision. Hard choices get made every single year. For 5 years in my time here, and it's been good, but it's hard every single year. Priorities get established. Who do you want to be going forward? May God bless us all and our church leaders so that we can continue to be the blessing we've been for 5 years, so that we can continue to be the blessing we've been for 75 years. And may you be blessed hearing this sermon as I have been blessed. Amen.